Hey, welcome back, or welcome for the first time. I am doing a video today for those of you who are taking care of young people who are giving you a little bit of challenging behavior in the form of temper tantrums or sassiness or generally being belligerent um, or difficult. I don't know what you choose, what word you want to put in there. Okay. But this is happening probably more than anything else. This is the frustration that people keep asking me about. What has happened to my child? Why are they so angry? And what can I do about it? Because I'm getting into these battles and it's not helping. And I'm so frustrated and they are so frustrated. And we just end up being in opposite ends of the corner, opposite corners of the room, being frustrated. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about frustration and temper tantrums because in children it's very different than it is in adults. And yes, so your child may be bored or um, testing you or just trying to be a little shit is what my grandparents would have said. And so it might be that is what they're trying to do, is to get a rise out of you and push your buttons. But I would say the vast majority of kids who are expressing frustration, annoyance, belligerence, temper tantrums, anger, sassiness, what it really is sadness. So sadness for kids doesn't look the same as sadness in adults. So if you think about what you look like when you're sad as an adult, and you can, look like you have, less energy, and you might be crying, and you might be isolating, and you might be, you know, turning inward. Kids typically, when they feel sadness, it looks very much like temper tantrums and frustration and anger and sassiness and all of those things. There's pushback. That's how they express sadness. So with everything that's going on right now, we're seeing two very specific types of sadness in kids. The first is situational sadness. So that means sadness based on the situation or a series of situations. And for kids, there's a lot of loss going on for kids right now. So it's not only the loss of their regular schedule and the loss of school, even if you have a kid who doesn't normally like school, just having the regularity and seeing the same people every day and being outside of the house and having, their identity as I'm a school kid, disrupting that, there's a loss there. And then there's also lots of activity losses, right? So birthday parties, kids are worried about summer camp now. Thinking about summer camp, is summer camp going to be on? Trips, holidays, seeing the grandparents they normally see, or seeing friends that they normally see, or maybe they can't go to their karate class, or maybe the soccer's been canceled, or maybe they sing in a choir and that's not meeting anymore. So there are a lot of things that they normally do that they can't do right now. And think about how out of control you feel with everything that's going on. Kids have inherently even less control because they're kids, and so they feel even more out of control. Than even we do. And so there's so much happening that's changing, and that can lead to great, great sadness, and they don't know what to do with the sadness. Okay. Um, and proximal sadness is the other kind, and that is the idea that they're absorbing what they see and what they experience, and the sadness that we have, they're absorbing into their own. And so this is one of those things that even if you think you are shielding your child from how you feel and what's happening in the world, you're probably wrong. And I'm not trying to be mean. It's just that kids really absorb our energy. Even if our mouths are not saying certain words, we're probably showing a lot of difference than how we normally act and behave, and they pick up on everything. So some examples are, you might really have your head in social media or the newspaper or the news on TV much more than you normally do. And not only that, but it might be harder for them to punch in and connect with you if you are more absorbing worrisome news. It's not the same as you're just sort of reading something for fun, and it's easy for your child to interrupt you and be like, "Hey, I need something," and you're like, "What's up? What's going on?" When we're down and we're like, "Oh, what's happening?" It's harder for kids to break in usually and to get our attention, but also they're watching. Our side. You might be reading a news article about the number of cases they're jumping every day, and you might say, you know, they hear that. That's something that they interpret that as negative. They know that something, that you're experiencing some kind of unrest, some kind of unhappiness, and they will internalize that. You might be giving your spouse or your partner like certain looks, like, did you catch that today? Even if you don't say what it is. So they absorb that. Okay. It might be that you are feeling low energy, you're feeling frustrated, your frustration tolerance is not normally where it is. Normally, you're super peppy and happy and excited, and now you're just kind of getting through the day. All of those things that they're going to internalize, and because they're not necessarily going to understand it, in fact, they probably won't understand it, it can lead them to feeling more uncertain because they don't know what's going on. They just know that you're different. Okay. And so that's proximal sadness. So, most likely, what you are seeing is sadness. So, what are the things that we can do for sadness in kids? And I like to give 5 things. I don't know why, but that just seems to be my number of tips. So, here are the 5 things. The first thing is to do your best to keep the abnormal away from them. And what I mean by that is if you, as I described, are sort of scrolling constantly, obsessively, worrisomely, not a word, should be a word. We'll make it a word today. Is that something that you can do during nap time only? Or is that something that you can do first thing in the morning before they wake up? Even if it means you have to get up earlier in order to have that time away from them to understand what's happening in the news? Is it something that can wait until after they go to bed? Okay, so um, often the answer is no, but do everything in your power to limit the abnormal, limit the change, and limit, your feelings of whatever is happening to you. Limit their exposure to that. Okay, so that's always our first line of defense, is to limit that. You won't be 100% perfect in this. You cannot be. But just to be mindful about that when there's a choice, wait until the kid, so don't suggest to dad like, okay, well, I'll talk to you later when we get a chance, like they pick up on that. So just trying to be smiley and sunny to the best of your ability when they're around, and to create some positive energy around them, even if you're not feeling it on the inside. You might have to act, you might feel manipulative, but do your best, okay, to have that. Um, Having said that, don't lie either, because kids can totally feel lies, right? So you can have a balanced response. So you can say, oh, I don't know what's happening now. It is a scary time. So I definitely feel scared too. But let's focus on something that we can control. Let's go off and do this. Let's go and do this kind of thing. Okay, you're modeling. Yes, it's scary. Yes, there's a lot that's outside of our control, a lot we don't know. But we also have a great opportunity to focus on this over here. And let's have fun doing that, or let's learn something, or let's dig in and make it worth our while. They'll learn how to do that through you and then be able to do that more likely for themselves. Okay. Um, the third thing is to just be reassuring, be positive, make games when you can, even if it's doing annoying, household chores, make things a game. You want them to laugh as much as possible. Most kids laugh with lots of different people all day long in different formats. And it's hard to do that with the same person all the time when you're always, the teacher and the parent and the maid and the chef and all those things, and you're all they're seeing. People are having a lot of fun with adopting different personalities in terms of acting, like puppet shows or doing different voices, or just, in, embrace your inner goofball, and your kids will be happy about that for sure. And uh, Going along with that, actually, the last one on this one too, I'm just reminded by the thing that Mr. Rogers said in a quote. the wonderful Mr. Rogers, where when he was growing up, there was some sort of unrest, something happening in his community that was upsetting. They were looking at the news, whatever it was. And his mother famously said, yeah, this is awful what's happening, but look for the helpers. Look for the helpers, because with every crisis and every disaster, there's always somebody helping. And that's a great thing to teach your kids. And so that's one of the things you might focus on when you're giving them that balanced view. You might say, yes, this is a tough time, a stressful time, but look at all these great things that people are doing. Let's focus on that. What are some good things, and what are some good things we can do? Um, okay, anyway, and then the fourth thing is to be patient. So this is going to be hard for sure. Get help, tag out, tag each other out if you have other people around you, and do that often. Even if you don't have other people around you, tag yourself into the closet or the bathroom or wherever, so that you can grow that patience again. But do be patient. Do be as patient as possible, especially when they're acting out. And hopefully, it will help you to think of them as, okay, this person who is yelling at me right now is actually sad, and that's what that is. I need to treat this like sadness. You'll have more patience. We have way more patience for sadness than we do for anger. And so, think of it that way and be patient. And the last thing is to just love them. Love them, love them, love them. Every way that you can love your kid. Find different ways that you can love them. Hug them often. Even if your kid is not normally a physical touch kind of a kid, test it out, because these days they might be. They might need more of that hugging, and that physical touch. So it doesn't have to be a hug, it can be any kind of physical touch, anything that's reassuring, that gives them that physical, here I am, I'm here, and I'm loving you no matter what. Okay. If a kid is in the middle of a temper tantrum, yes, you can say, okay, go and remove yourself, but not in a punitive way, just in a like, okay, where is a safe space for you? And go to that space so that you can rage if you need to rage, and then draw yourself back into a more collected place. But you want to give them that permission to go off and do that. If you're able to stay with them during a temper tantrum, then you don't want to rationalize with them, you don't want to reason with them, you just want to sit and be there. And sometimes you might even touch them. It might be that you're touching a toe, okay, something very small, but just touching them is reassuring them that you are there, you are here, for them, and whatever they're feeling is okay. And no matter how they're behaving, even if ultimately you'd like them to handle and express their sadness in a more productive way than yelling at you, or punching the wall, or storming off, or whatever it is that they're doing, um, you you want to start with a place of acceptance. It's really, really important. And the last thing I'll say about that is, often whatever actions kids take, if they feel guilty about that action, which I think a lot of times parents want them to, like, yeah, you should feel guilty for talking to me like that. Like, that's not an okay thing. In a normal circumstance, I would agree with you, but what I want you to remember now is that if they feel guilty for how they're behaving and they don't know any other way to behave, so let me back up. If they're feeling sad and they don't necessarily even recognize that, and they don't know, they just know that they don't feel good and they don't know what to do about it, and if they get really frustrated and they act out in a certain way, and then you're mad at them for acting out, or they're mad at themselves and they feel guilty, it's just going to compound that sadness. It's just going to make them even more sad, and they already don't know what to do with those feelings. So these strange times call for sometimes a different approach, and in this way you want to really embrace them and let them know that you're here no matter what, and you're going to get through it together, and not everyone makes the best choices 100% of the time, and that's okay. And go from there. Okay. Having said that, sometimes distracting them is better than naming it directly. Sometimes just putting on something happy, doing something goofy, getting in, engaging them in that way can also break their sadness. So it depends on knowing your child, and knowing what will work for them, but you might have to try things that are different than how they normally react. So that is what we're talking about today. Today, temper tantrums and what to do about them. and how to recognize sadness in your child. I hope that was helpful. Do post comments and I will read them, or you can send a question to me at the Rose Center for Learning, which is www.rosecenterforlearning.com, or find us on Facebook or Instagram, LinkedIn, all the ways. And we will post more videos for you. You also can join our parent group called COPE, which is creating optimal parenting energy. And that's going to meet several times a week. Go to our website and click on the parenting page to look at the details of that. And we hope to see you down the road, one way or another. Hang in there. You're going to make it through, and we're here to help.